how easy that gets. This is good for this tour. Sometimes it's a bit wet, isn't it? Okay, good morning. My name's John. You'll see me a couple of times today. The Nimrod, you'll see me when you're doing Concorde and a bit. I'll see you on Concorde's flight taking an hour or so. Welcome now, Nimrod. Health and safety first. When we go on board, take care on the steps, and the door's about this high. Concorde's door's about that high. This one's even smaller. As you go through the aeroplane, it's a military aeroplane, so it's not quite as passenger friendly as some aircraft, so be careful. I've just spent sort of 10 minutes turning the turner on, so if you touch a switch, it might do what it's supposed to do. So please don't touch any of the switches necessary. So we'll start outside the aeroplane, and you notice there's bits of gravel and things. Just take care, mind you don't bang your head on bits of the aeroplane and stick it out. That's basically it. Take pictures absolutely wherever you like, no problems at all. Has anybody got any Nimrod background? Force background?
No.
Always check that first. Okay, you may know the Nimrod's based on the Javelin Comet 4C, so that's where it came from. More about that when we're on board. But I'll go sort of down this wing first to the fuselage, then we'll go on board, walk through and come around the other side. It sort of works nicely there. So the wing itself is a Comet wing. It's exactly the same. If you go to Duxford and look at the Comet they've got there, or anywhere else, it looks just like this. But it's got this thing on the end, extra support measures, ESM pod. That's part of the defensive weapons for the aircraft. They were fitted during service, and it's basically got radar sensors. It's got missile sensors on the end of the wings, detect incoming missiles. That's the thing there. The original, the MR1 Nimrods, the early ones didn't have that. They were fitted during service there. I'll come underneath a bit more. The wing itself, these things on the outside are ailerons. The spikes on the back, lightning conductors, nothing odd about that at all. The wing's got fuel inside it. The first Comet, the Comet Mark 1, just had the wing, and the Comet 4C, they fitted a fuel tank on. It's just an extra fuel tank, just to give the aircraft more range. So the Comet 4C, which entered service in the late 50s, had these fuel tanks on, so it's exactly the same there. This black plastic thing you see here is Comet's a low wing aeroplane, so if the pilot lands a bit lopsided, the wing might touch the ground. So that's it. So we'll let one go. Fabulous condensation on the wing there. So this touches the ground first. There's actually a little wheel inside there. So that takes the blower on the wingtip. Great till the fit of the ESM pods on the end of the wing. That gets to the ground first. I'll show you some pictures later on. Come underneath a bit more.
So you've got a gyro lovely, now.
Air brakes here, slotted air brakes above and below, very effective. This bit behind the air brake is the flaps. It's a simple flap, just hinges down. If you go down to Cosford, they've got a Nimrod R1 there, and they've parked theirs up with the wing with the flaps down, and it literally comes all the way down here. Very spectacular, very, very effective flaps. Under the wing, there's a hard point here. This hard point, this is a flare dispenser, shaft dispenser, to count, as it says there, modular countermeasures, thermopod. It's there to fire chaff or flares out to deflect incoming missiles. That's the theory there. If it's a heat-seeking missile, the flares hopefully distract the missile. If it's a radar-based missile, they can fire chaff out there. In the Second World War, they used to call it window. It was aluminium strips. Came down to deflect to basically make the radar signal more blurry. On this, it's thin pieces of fiberglass painted with aluminium paint, so it's still radar opaque, and it's cut to the exact wavelength of the missile, of the radar on the missiles. So it really stops really effective. During the Falklands War, the Nimrods were being used to shadow the task force going down to the Falklands, and the Argentinians were shadowing the task force using Boeing 707 transport aircraft. Nice long range, Mark 1 eyeball just for the task force. The task force didn't have any defensive capability when they were actually sailing, because all the aircraft were tied down in storage because it was travelling so fast. But the Nimrods were fitted with sidewinder missiles. They fitted 2 sidewinder missiles to these hard points. And it got into public domain that all of a sudden the Nimrod had an air-to-air capability. The 707s didn't go near the task force anymore. That's there, so they're fitted there. And interestingly, one Phantom versus a Nimrod, the Nimrod would win. You could actually shoot a Phantom down, the Phantom couldn't get there, because the missiles on the Phantom were radar missiles, and the Nimrod could fly a course that the missiles couldn't pick up, the radar couldn't track, it was stop left, so they couldn't pick up, so they fired them. Sidelines and heat seeking, just fire them back. 2 Phantoms and Nimrod lost. Come on underneath a bit more. the wing there is straight, there's some on the outside where they're purely to deflect air going over the wing. These little wedges on the front of the wing, they fit the Comets as well. They are there to help the aircraft stall. Okay? The wing is such a good wing that the stall is fairly benign, and do you understand how an aircraft wing works? Yeah? Air goes further over top than underneath, faster it goes, lower pressure, that's how a wing works. As the aircraft slows down, the main butt flaps on to make the wing more curved. As the aircraft slows down, the wing tends to tilt back, the air breaks away from the wing and the wing stalls. That's how normal aircraft wings, Congo doesn't work like that, but normal aircraft do. They put these on to actually make the stall more sharper, so the pilot had more control over it. They were fitted to the Comet as well.
Like a hairdresser.
The engines on this aircraft, remember, it's based on the Comet, a 1940s design, and they're installed in the wing root, 2 Rolls-Royce Spey on either side. The initial ones were even, but then they put Speys on for the Nimrod, and it's a low ratio bypass turbofan. The theory was to put them in the wing root, so they're closer to the centre line. If you lose an engine, you get less deflection. They thought it would be better aerodynamically. It isn't. They're now the best place for engines is actually on pylons under the wing. If you've got to fit them under the wing, even better to the back of the aeroplane. But, aircraft these days tend to have pylons under the wing. Look at the side of the aircraft. Got the weapons bay underneath. We'll talk about that later on. That bit there is Comet. This bit here is Nimrod. And you can see the join. So if you have a look at the Comet, you will be able to touch it with that. This is the same height as a Comet. Okay? So that's there's Comet, and they've effectively stuck another bit underneath. So you can see it from the front as well. So this is the bit that turns that fuselage into a Nimrod. It's got the weapons bay, it's got radar at the front, it's got fuel and stuff at the back. To give extra range.
Oh, so it's literally a hybrid.
Pardon?
It's literally a hybrid.
It's a Havilland Comet. It's actually the first two. I'll talk about this on board a bit, but in fact, yeah, let's get on board. I'll start me on board with that. See the undercarriage here. The undercarriage falls up with the wings here, falls outwards. It's exactly the same as a Comet. The structure of the aircraft. So this would come down. The wheels fold up in there. Okay, quite complicated. Come on.
But we're built for defence as well, for attacking as well. Just different.
Come off, the sun might be out, you never know.
Oh, that's interesting. Plug that. Yeah. Oh, brilliant.
Fixes.
Oh, wow.
Okay, welcome aboard. Smell it? A wonderful smell. We get quite a lot of XRF crew on our tours, and the first thing we do when they come aboard, oh, that's better. Yeah, every airplane's got its own smell. The civilian ones, they tend to neutralise as much as they can, but if you go underneath them, it's a little bit of smell. Okay, welcome aboard. Yeah, so what I'll do, I'll talk about the maritime reconnaissance, a bit of history of this airplane, not too much because we don't know too much of it. How we drop the sonar buoys in the water, and then we'll have a walk through the aeroplane and we'll go through there. So this aeroplane, she joined the RAF in April 1969, flew right through till May 2010 when the whole Nimrod fleet was grounded. So she's, what's that, 41 years old, so she's lived a life. She's the second Nimrod MR2 to go to the RAF, so she's the oldest surviving Nimrod MR2. So the service-wise, she's maritime reconnaissance. That's what MR stands for. MR1 was the first model of the Nimrod. Then they modified it that much. They created the MR2. She went out to the Persian Gulf. She was the first aircraft out to the Persian Gulf in the First Gulf War. We know that for a fact. She went out to Afghanistan as well, and she went out to the Persian Gulf in the Second Gulf War. We don't know if she went to the Falklands. We don't think she did. She spent most of her life either at St Morgan or Kinloss, which is the main Nimrod bases. So maritime reconnaissance, how does this work? It's about looking for things on or in the sea. It goes back to the First World War when they had balloons or gliders or aircraft on the back of ships. Became much more of an art in the Second World War when they were sort of looking for submarines and boats. In the early days it was Mark 1 eyeball, then they actually got a surface in 1941, they actually got a radar, airborne radar, which picked things up on the surface. Under the sea, you're looking for submarine snorkels, submarines, periscopes, or the snorkels when they're actually sort of charging the batteries. That's the only under the sea, the only way you had to look about there. Until they developed something called sonar buoys. The aircraft that used to do it were mainly converted land-based aeroplanes. So in the early days it was Lockheed Hudson, Lancasters, what's the other, Ansons, basically Wellingtons, aeroplanes that weren't fit for frontline land-based service but were fairly safe over the sea when there's not too much airborne opposition. After the Second World War they used the Avro Lincoln, which is based on the Lancaster, and the first proper bespoke maritime reconnaissance aircraft the RAF used was the Avro Shackleton, and that's based again on the Lancaster lineage. It's the same wing as the Lancaster, the Lincoln, and the Argosy for interest, but it's the same wing, different fuselage. There's a bunch of guys down at Coventry are going to get a Shackleton back in the air given the following wind, and so then it's going to be powered on this Saturday. They're going to actually do an engine run on this Saturday. If you go down to Coventry, and the Nimrod down there is going to do an engine run as well. I'm going to Eltham to where they're going to do a drive there's around. So the Shackleton, nicknamed 250,000 rivets in close formation or perfect harmony, wonderfully noisy aeroplane. It's the first one to use proper sonar buoys, and so the Shackleton entered service in first flew in the late 40s, entered service in the early 50s, and served right through till the 70s as far as maritime reconnaissance is concerned. When it came to the 60s, they were looking for a replacement aeroplane. All the NATO forces were looking for replacement aircraft. Most of them went the turboprop route. The RAF decided to go the jet route because they've got such a big area of sea. They thought, if you get a jet, you can transit faster and spend more time in the area as you're searching, where the turboprops aren't as fast. That's the difference. This aircraft can fly sort of about 500 miles an hour, like a normal jet, whereas the turboprops are 300 and something, so you can get there quick. We looked at various aeroplanes. Somebody said VC-10 the other day, but I can't believe that. But the BAC-111 definitely. The Trident, we've got a Trident next to us there. But Hawker Siddeley had two Comets sitting at Chester, which they said we can convert these into Nimrods. So they got the job to produce the aircraft, produce the maritime reconnaissance aircraft. And one was flown to Woodford and converted to Woodford, the other one was done at Chester. They were the two prototypes. They worked, so they got the job to actually produce the Nimrods. And we're talking outside about is a hybrid aeroplane. I thought at the time, I was in the Air Cadets in the late 60s, early 70s, I thought they were all converted Comets. They weren't. The first two were. After that, they're all new build, using the Comet jigs. So they actually made the components, some at Chester, some at Chadderton, and shipped them to Woodford to actually assemble the aircraft. Interestingly, the jigs were made out of wood. When they came to convert the Nimrods, MR2s, into MRA4s, which I'll get to in a few seconds, they found that one of the problems they had, the MRA4 is the same as the Nimrod MR2, same fuselage, new wings, new engines. The wings didn't fit. It turned out that all these Nimrod MR2s that being built were slightly different, because on a dry day and a wet day the wooden jigs went bigger and smaller. So every Nimrod, 49 of them were built, were slightly different sizes. It's just one of the many problems they had with the MRA4. So the Nimrod entered service in 1969 and served right through till 2010. Started as MR1, they were refurbished to MR2s. 3 of them were converted to Nimrod R1 spy aircraft. More about those in a few minutes. Some were tried as airborne early warning. Again, I'll talk about those as we're walking through the aeroplane. The Shackletons, meanwhile, some of those were converted for airborne early warning, because the Nimrod AEW they couldn't get working. So they used some of the Shackletons. They took the radars, airborne radar off Fairy Gannets, stuck them on the Shackletons, and the Shackletons worked right through into the 90s. So the Shackleton kept on going right through into the 90s. Good old Shackletons there. Kept on going. So they say that's where the Nimrod came from. How do you look for things on the sea? Radar, Mark 1 eyeball. How do you look for things under the sea? What you actually do is you drop a sonar buoy in the water. Okay, and the sonar buoy, there's another picture at the back there. The sonar buoy is a cylinder. There's 2 there, one there, one there. You can just see the piece. I'll show you one in a second or two. And what you do is you drop the sonar buoy in the water. It's got a microphone that comes out the bottom, and it listens for things. Okay, you don't just go around flying lobbing these things in the water. They're quite expensive bits of kit. So you're mainly looking for Soviet submarines, obviously. So you had a rough idea where the submarines were, because as they transited from Russia around the north of in between the UK and Greenland, there's a network of microphones on the seabed. Anything that goes through that gap, they pick the sound up. SOSUS is called, sound surveillance system. SOSUS. SSS is probably better, but it doesn't sort of work, does it? Everything that goes through that gap is picked up. So pick the sound up, the guys listening say, oh, we know what that is, no problem. Oh, there's a Soviet submarine. Fire off a Nimrod. There's a Nimrod on 7x24 standby, 2 hours standby at the longest. And fire the Nimrod off, and the Nimrod goes and hunts for the submarine. Drops the sonar buoys in the water in a pattern, listening for the submarine. The first sonar buoy it actually drops is a temperature sensor called, and it's about, the water, the seabed, the seawater has got a temperature gradient. There's always bands of water at different temperatures, the rest of the water above and below it. That's the sound sonic barrier. So if you drop your microphone down above the band of water, the different temperature water, and the submarine's below, you can't hear for it, listen for it. So the first sonar buoy that dropped down, drops the temperature sensor down, goes down, measures the temperature gradient of the water. Then the next one they drop, lowers the microphone to the right side to listen for the submarines. They're always around about 1,000 feet under. That's about as deep as they go, the submarines, when they transit there. And you drop the sonar buoys. There's two basic types of sonar buoys: active and passive. Passive, just listen. Active, send a ping of sound out and pick the reflection back. They drop the sonar buoys in a pattern. This pattern could be up to 100 miles wide. So they know roughly where the submarine is. Drop a pattern of sonar buoys there. Pick the sound up, triangulate the position, because the sonar buoys send the signals back to the aircraft, and triangulate the position of the submarine and just track it. Then after it's gone so far, they fly ahead and do the same thing again. And just basically track the submarine. That's the difference. Interestingly as well, every submarine makes a slightly different noise. 2 submarines off the same production line, one makes a slightly different noise to the one next to it. And there's a database of sound patterns on the aircraft, so they know exactly what submarine they're looking for. How do they drop the sonar buoys? These are the sonar buoy launchers. The TAC nav up front would tell them which sonar buoys to do, so these screens would come up with the information about which sonar buoys to drop, to load and things. This sonar buoy launcher here works a bit, can be used when the aircraft pressurised, so one either side. So you can put the sonar buoy in there, and you can launch when the aircraft's pressurised. These ones back here work when the aircraft's not pressurised, so it's walk around time now. Do you want to come have a look at this? A bit like a revolver.
Okay.
Do you want me to open that one so you can get a picture of that one open? So this basically, you can launch 12 at a time, and then another 12, 24s a minute for this aircraft. This is a sonar buoy. So you pick the sonar buoy up and put it in there. Just put it on there because it's quite heavy. You can see this is one of the bigger ones. It's quite a heavy bit of meat. This one there. Quite intriguing as well. It's got rid of the side, protect from seawater. Bit of a giggle that, but that's basically how it's activated. So you put it in there, press launch, it fires out, a drogue chute comes out, so it hits the water the right way, so this drogue chute pops out, so it hits the water the right way. As soon as it hits the water, an inflation collar comes out, so it flows from the right way, then it does what's being set to do. You set it before you launch it, to actually what height you want the microphone to go down to. That kind
Does somebody go around to collect them all back up then?
They're all single use. There's an interesting story. We're always getting more knowledge from loads of people there. There was a story that the one that we definitely know got picked up, a Russian submarine surface next to the sonar buoy. Boat comes out and picks up the sonar buoy back in the boat and takes it back on board. We wondered if that was urban myth. We actually had the navigator from the flight that was done on. He said it's 100% true. They were still picking up the voices, the Russian voices, as the sonar buoy was on board the aeroplane, because the microphone was still working. So that's 100% true.
After how long?
Well, when they picked it up and put it on board, what happens is it'll operate for maybe a few hours, and they set it to sink itself. Yeah, right. Hours there, because the submarines are travelling quite quickly. So they basically the submarines are the fastest submarines, the destroyers couldn't cast about 45 knots. The fastest submarines, they're normally travelling quite quick anyway. So you drop the sonar buoy in the water for up to 8 hours, and then it sinks itself. The inflation collar's got a heated element, just punctures the collar, so it just sinks. Single use, because that one was picked up by the Russians. On Thursday last week, was it Thursday? Yeah. Jeff, one of our guides, when we got this sonar board, by the way, the guys that give us it said, whatever you do, we sent an email around, there's a clip on the side, don't undo it because the parachute will come out, you'll never get it back in. One of our guys, Jeff, didn't get the email. He was playing. I think it's quite good because you actually see the drone shoot. It works quite nicely. People play, we play quite a bit.
Are there any estimations of how many are floating around the sea then?
Well, they're not floating around the sea.
Yeah, well, you know what I'm saying, yeah.
The guy on Thursday was ex one of the AEOPs on the Nimrods, and he said they had a deal with the fishermen that if they caught one of the sonar boys in the net and brought it back, they got 50 quid for them. They stopped doing it because the fishermen were waiting for the sonar boys to go. So as soon as the sonar boys, they'd go and snatch the sonar boys, so they stopped doing that one there. So they did get some back, but out of fishermen's nets more than anything else there.
Must be a heck of a lot.
We're just about to modify, yeah, heck of a lot.
Won't a lot of those sort of throughout future navigation or
Well,
you know, the metal
they're right on the sea.
When it send out,
there's lots of rubbish on the bottom of the seabed anyway.
Yeah.
And it would deactivate itself as well, so the batteries would go flat. So.
What kind of battery life did they have then?
I haven't got a clue. It's about 8 hours.
Yeah.
They work for about 8 hours. That's what they said there. So it's about 8 hours. And putting it in there, it's quite a physical job as well. That was quite heavy. Remember, this aircraft's smooth. When you're dropping these sonar buoys normally, you're about 250 feet above the sea. You're about 250 miles an hour. So it's quite bumpy. It's seriously bumpy. One of the guys on one of my tours was standing at the door of the galley. The aircraft hit a bump, went right through and hit the back wall. Twisted his ankle, but he was okay. He carried on. So it was quite a physical job there.
your toe's broken when you drop it in your toe.
So yeah, the sonar boys. I'll show you some more as we go through the airplane. Rest of the back of the aircraft. The other stuff they have in here, they could fit it out for transport fully. This wouldn't have so many seats as this normally. They'd have more racks of sonar boys in there, depending on how long the mission was. Transport, you get up to 40 people onto 40 people now using it as a transport aircraft anyway. The seats are much closer together than that. Some of these seats are Nimrods, some are off the Comet. During the Gulf War, the Nimrods were acting as a relay for the SAS, the guys on the ground, the undercover guys. They had short range radio. They had some SAS guys on board the Nimrod with just basically relaying the radio signal, the short range to the long range back to base. If that was the case, the galley door was shut. If they were on board, nobody ever so the RAF guys didn't see what the other guys were doing. At the back of the aeroplane, just look back here a second or two. There's two hatches on the floor. It had two cameras, air-to-grade surface cameras. Standard sort of fixed cameras, so if you take pictures you have to move the aeroplane side to side. That is a genuine Nimrod aircrew overall. It's off a Vulcan sphere, but it's a genuine overall. They weren't that tall, it's just the mannequin that tall there. The thing there. Ladder is genuine, it's genuine ladder. If you land somewhere and you can't get down, you need a ladder to get out of the aeroplane. Oh, I forgot to say as well, if we have to get out of this airplane for any reason, if there's a problem, that door's open, the front right hand door's open. Don't use any of the other doors, there's no steps. There are two cameras on the side there. On this side they had what they called a gun. It fired a flare out the back, a flare float, which went out the back at exactly the same speed as the aircraft's going forwards. There's lots of observation points around the aircraft. Each of the observation points has got a button called a mad marker. If somebody saw something, press the button, shout mark on the intercom so somebody picks it up. That button would fire the flare out the back, and then it would float in the sea, and then the pilot does a quick 180, comes back and has a look, see what they've done this for. And this is the safe used to keep the actual the floats in. It's just a bit of wood with a flare on it. And the various ones for this depend how fast the aircraft's going. That's the difference there. Just the safest one. Some oxygen stuff in the back. They took the mad mark, they stopped using the flare mark.